Okay, so for the last couple of weeks over the holidays, I've been doing a lot of thinking about um, what do I want to write about or talk about? And it's no surprise that a lot of the stuff that I've been thinking about is sort of sitting in the intersection of the two big worlds that I kind of occupy. One is the very everyday kind of world of like kids and family and, school pickups and libraries and all that kind of stuff. And the other is the cutting edge of technology, of building AI products, of like asking questions of how does it work? How can you build it? What does it solve? Other problems does it create? And what's been really cool for me is that I've been super privileged and lucky to be able to push forward on what you would call like to the frontier, to the edges of these problem spaces. To be able to build something better and different, I think you need to really understand the problem like really, really deeply. And I don't think I thought that you'd have to go quite so deep, and it was so gnarly. But 10 years into building things for childcare and the invisible load, it's like you can't just say it's like childcare and the invisible load because it's a ton of interrelated things. But the thing that I am as optimistic and I believe in as much as I did on day one are these two things. One is I deeply believe in this lens of village, that the thing that modern parenthood is missing is village, and not this like kumbaya kind of thing, but like a very structural, um, functional safety net that actually holds me and my family, and I can hold other people. And in this topic for another conversation is maybe I feel like the word village is totally overused and it's very unclear. Like, what is it? What is a village? And what does it mean to be a villager? Which I think is a really important conversation to get into. But I think rather I'm kind of bringing it back to be a good neighbor. What does it mean to be a good neighbor, to have neighbors? That one's really interesting to me. And then on the other side, I have had a very strong belief in machines that do work and that free us, the humans, up for other kind of either upstream, kind of more creative, more valuable work, or theoretically leisure, as they say. So that those kind of two ideas have always been really interesting to me. The idea of machines is really important because the invisible load specifically is highly gendered. It doesn't need to be, but it is. It is work that is traditionally and typically done by generally women and women's brains. And so for me, the interesting thing is well, why and how can we build a machine that takes on some of it, the right bits of it? All of that is value laden with like, what is the right bits and what are the actual bits that you and how do you do it? But that's the idea. The idea is you have to be able to dig into the work, see it really, really well, to be able to build the kind of machines that might be able to free us up, to be able to then free our time and our attention to do other things. So that is why I really care about village and community, and I care about machines. But when you sit where I have for as long as I have, you see that actually these camps are becoming further apart. So right now you've got, man, a lot of people that look very same, but like you've got the Elons and the Darios and the Sams and the Zucks um, and the Bezoses, like the generally men, generally a certain background, doing a lot of the building of AI products, of companies, of tech companies. And I don't think that there's a value judgment in and of it that self. I think we've had, and a lot of us benefit from a lot of these innovations. What for me is the challenge is that it's like a small group doing outsized representation of the products. And for a lot of this side, what we're hearing is AI is going to solve all of these different problems and that we need to go faster, that we need to outrun problems by innovating. And there's a big part of that I actually believe in. But I also think that there's parts of it that are very problematic that are not getting dug into and looked at from a very practical standpoint. And then on the other side, where there's a lot of people who are feeling um, who the negative consequences of having a small group of people build outsized kind of tech products. And again, I'm a mother of two daughters who are now like preteens, teens, and so very much are living the experience of, screens, and do you give them phones and social media and all of that kind of stuff. Um, but there is this camp over here, and it's growing, but it's more like tech is evil and should be feared, or, just put away and not touched and not engaged with. And while I also resonate with parts of it, and like my girls are not getting phones at least until they're 16, and mostly because I think we're going to have invented something else that we don't really even need to give them that. Um, there are parts that I worry about because I do believe in technology. I'm a huge optimist. I think there's so many things that we can build. And beyond that, I think there's lots of things we have to build that only technology. And again, I say technology in like that's such an umbrella term. Like the wheel is technology. But what I mean is like this modern version of like the digital, the AI. And I absolutely think that we need to engage with it, build with it, but build the things that we need in the way that we need it. And so for me, it's sort of an imagination problem and a values priorities problem. And it's a who's doing the building problem. They're all related. But if we start at the beginning of like, this is an imagination problem, this became really clear to me as I started to dig in of like, it's not like technology is good, bad, or has value judgments in and of itself. It's code. It's these instructions. It is the people who are doing the building that do the trade-offs and the decisions across like value judgments and priorities and all of that stuff. And so that's where it gets interesting. Because, if you just think about it, what if Facebook had been built by a mom? I can tell you it would have been different. Now, I don't know if it's as successful, as big, all of those things. Those are different questions. But I think who builds something is super, super important. So where I'm really interested in this period of like, just explore things and curiosity, I'm interested in this question of we have an imagination problem. We need to imagine the kind of technology, the kind of AI that actually serves us in the way that we might want it to. But what does that look like? And the more I thought about that, the more I thought, well, I want that to come from a place of play and curiosity. But that doesn't happen if I don't feel security and I don't feel understanding. And so that's sort of where I wanted to dig in into, well, let's dig into some of these things, some of these like deeper questions. I want to have conversations with people who are thinking about it, building it. Again, that's the other cool part about being a founder for so long, is that you get to meet other amazing people with really great ideas. And what I've realized is a lot of their stuff is not getting the light of day, or like isn't being talked about in the same way that a lot of these other things, these polarized kind of ideas, are getting a lot of light on. So to start for today, what I wanted to do was just something that is relatively simple, but I think thought provoking, which is, what does great technology look like to you? And so I walked around my house and I picked up a couple of things that I thought represented like great technology in my life. And they're a mix of digital things. And I just kind of wanted to take a look at like, why do I think this is great? What does it make me feel? What does it do in my life? And so let's take a look. So first, I have so my friends will all recognize this beast, but this is a FreeWrite. It is a typewriter. But this is an e-ink display at the top. And so when you turn it on and you can just start typing, there's no other screen and it only goes in one direction. And so I love this thing. I type, I do morning pages. So it's like 750 words, roughly 3 pages every morning. That's not the point. The point is though, is that typically people could do it like by handwriting in journals. I actually find it really helpful to just type. I type faster. And then sometimes if I'm writing like a speech or some other kind of presentation, you can actually send that to your computer and it's just a Google Doc. And so that is like, man, I love that because it's like this tactile artifact that I can cart around, and it's like really great conversation in coffee shops. And man, I've gotten into great conversations. but it is technology because it makes a certain part way more efficient, aka the part when I want to get the words out of my head into the thing and then onto my computer screen. It makes that really, really easy. And so, but without e-ink technology, without Bluetooth, without wireless, without all a bunch of other things, that is not possible. And so I love that I have the options. Some days I write in my notebooks, which are back here and plentiful. Some days I do go straight to the laptop. But I love having this little piece of technology. Number two, who remembers these little guys? I love this. I think it was called an iPod Shuffle. Man, I really hope they bring these back because I would be first in line. But I remember getting one of these and they play, I don't even know, like you load up your playlist and you hit play. And again, like just the like linearity of this, you could go forward or you can go back. I love this to go running. And right now I can't figure out how to load new songs onto it because I just like I don't know if it's too old or something. So it's a little bit of a time machine because it's got my songs from like I think 2009. But that is a delight in and of itself. But nobody can tell me that this isn't a beautiful piece of technology. Keeping it in the Apple family, AirPods. I'm sure everyone sort of like. I mean, I would like it to be not so what is it, slick or like because this thing flies out of my hands faster than you can look at them. But I really love the like ability to just kind of pop those in, have a podcast, go for a walk, go for a conversation. That's really made things a lot easier. So love that. Let's go for a couple on the phone. So this one is like my Pomodoro. I'm sure people have like who need help with focusing. This one's called Forest. And it's an app where you can say how many, like how long you want to focus for. It says 30 minutes, and then you plant. And then you're not allowed to go to any other apps or anything else other on your phone, because if you do, that little tree that was growing there, it dies. And I don't know you, but I really need kind of visceral consequences like that. And so you can plant this tree, and then after the 30 minutes, it's planted. And if you try to escape from here, it dies. So that's a cool piece of technology, like an app that kind of imagines a purpose and is bounded and does the thing really well. It doesn't try to do anything more than that. And then on the topic of screens, this one's like, I've long talked about this. I have a really hard time with the high level conversation about screen time. We can go into this like in the future, but I really think you have to think about like what's on the screen. Is it active? Is it passive? Like, is it algorithm driven? Is it bounded or like limited? But one thing I've always loved is having an art app on the iPad. We've had that forever since the kids were super young. And our girls just love like tons of different drawing, and especially my youngest. And so there's just so much, I'm just like looking and there's so much creative stuff. Like she's figured out a way to like take a photo and then sort of do a mask and then kind of like sketch and then color. There's, don't really know how she did this, but this looks cool. Again, it's like creativity. It's just, it is on a screen, but she uses the little pencil and she has these, it's just a different kind of canvas. And so I think that is a really cool use of technology and an app. And then going a little bit into AI, I think it is important to kind of dive into some of the things that are really interesting and possible. For now, I'll touch on two maybe language related, because right now where models are doing like I think can do really great things are language related. Not surprisingly, these LLMs have been trained on a ton of like text. And so, coding, where that's again text input and generation, but then also language. It makes also the things that we were trying to do with Milo that much harder because it's like in a completely different domain. But when you think about language and some of the things that are possible, Speak, which is a language app that I'm using, it's really great. It has these sort of like free form conversations you can do. It obviously uses like video and image generation there, but then it can have this really dynamic kind of speaking interaction. And I really love that because I've like tried to keep my French fluency up. We used to live in China and our Mandarin is totally gone. Well, basically gone, just because you can't practice, and speaking is just so critical. And so I found this has been so much better than any of the other kind of ways that we've tried to keep our language up. And then one of my favorites, I met this founder not so long ago, and I love what they're working on. So this is called Dex Camera. And as you can see, it's a camera in there. And they have a little LLM in here. And this is for language learning. And so it's set up for Spanish. So it's got a little camera here. Kids can take it, and then they can take a picture of something. So I just took a picture of my phone. You can see that. And then,
hey Aria, look at that. It's a phone. En español, eso es un teléfono. Can you say teléfono?
Teléfono.
Now there are some earbuds too. En español, se llaman audífonos. Son geniales para escuchar música. Can you say audífonos?
Audífonos. Anyways, I love this thing because this has an LLM inside. It's AI, but the point is not AI. The point is curiosity and learning, and handing one of these little guys to your kid and having them explore the world in a bounded and delightful way that also teaches them another language. I think this is some of the best kind of imagination of like what might be possible when you take the things that people are actually interested in, learning and growth and curiosity. And then, yeah, there's AI in it. That's what makes it possible to do it in this way. But the point is not AI. And so, what I want to do is these kinds of conversations, which is how do you imagine something like this? How do we dig into the details of it? How do we demand more of these types of things? And that's just from my perspective. That's just what I value and the types of things that I want to see more in the world. Depending on what you might want or what anyone else wants, that might look a little bit different. But the things that I think are really important is to start from a place of like optimism and understanding, which is like these are all pieces of technology, relatively modern pieces of technology. Why do I like them? What makes them delightful? What makes them fun for me to use? What makes them useful for me to use? Does it save me time? Does it make me feel a certain way? I think that these are all important noticing questions. And so I think the first step is the noticing. So I think that that's the thing for me out of this first kind of conversation, which is what do you notice? What do you notice in the technology around you? The good, the bad, the inspiring, the frustrating, the draining. I think all the noticing comes before we can do anything else, before we can kind of dig into it and understand it. And so, a prompt for this week is to notice the technology around you and what are the pieces that feel particularly empowering or inspiring or delightful in your world. And I'm excited to dig in because it's from that place that we can then start thinking about like how do we bring more of that into our lives through intentional building. And it's tricky. I'll be the first to tell you it's really, really hard. But the more that we understand it and the more that we know the intention of what we're trying to build and what is possible, the more that's totally doable. All of these things and many more are the very real examples. So happy exploring and noticing.